Said earlier this week that tax might be at the heart of the lack of trust. You've now got companies arguing loudly for tax cuts. This can't be helping.
I think the AICD's position is that we believe in the need for broad tax reform, not just a single issue. So the focus with business in arguing for company tax reforms, while we acknowledge that with what's happened with the American corporate tax rate, Australia will need to follow suit at some point. But we believe that argument is too simplistic. We believe that what we need is what the Ken Henry report 8 years ago attempted to deliver, wholesale tax reform. So that means looking at GST, looking at income tax reform, looking at payroll tax, looking at the range of taxes that impact on companies, on individuals, and coming to a better landing than we have today.
So is the Business Council actually damaging trust in business by being so single-minded about corporate tax cuts?
I think it's not particularly helpful to focus on it, and I think that it probably is largely a timing issue. We know that there are very low wage increases out there. People are hurting from energy price increases, from housing price increases at the same time that their wages aren't rising. And I think what the business community needs to do is to have a conversation about a whole range of issues, including tax reform, and not just one aspect of that reform.
Do you think it would be much easier for companies to argue for corporate tax cuts if they first argued for income tax cuts?
I think that would help.
Have you spoken to the Business Council's Jennifer Westacott about this?
We had a discussion last year about it, and we've agreed to disagree. I know why they have a focus on this. They are concerned that their members are disadvantaged, potentially disadvantaged in terms of investment by a lower tax rate in many parts of Asia, but also now in the US. And she understands our position, which is that we're looking for much broader tax reform. We know it's not going to happen anytime soon, but we think it's the right thing to argue for.
So going back to the trust issue, if businesses don't rebuild trust with Australians, what's the long-term cost going to be? No tax cuts?
I think if companies don't rebuild the trust, or worse, if the trust continues to erode, the whole question of the small L licence to operate in the community arises. That we operate as companies, as organisations, within an environment in which people trust us to create jobs, to create wealth, to create sustainable futures for us, for our children and our grandchildren. And if we don't do that, I suspect that we're in a position where that licence to operate is at risk, and I think that would be bad for the country's prosperity and for our future.
Elizabeth Proust, thank you for joining the program again.
Thank you, Elise.